Last episode, we were talking about the past, and I finished it off bringing up a story of two rainbows that I saw that brought me to tears. It was a moment that made me realize that part of finding the enjoyment in life is actively choosing to admire it. It's like the cliche of stopping to smell the roses. Quite often, we will pass them day by day, just writing them off, because how could the smell of a simple, redundant scent that we know make us any happier? But what we neglect to see is that repeated habits become mentality. So if we live our life with the mentality that smelling the roses is pointless, we will eventually end up passing not just one flower, but thousands of flowers, and missing the opportunity to admire and appreciate the beauty of the natural earth, which is all around us. And it is this buildup that makes the difference. If you were to smell all the roses every single day, it would make all the difference. But if you chose not to smell any of them, that would also make all the difference, just in the opposite direction. A couple weeks ago on this podcast, I said something along the lines of, the more we get used to something, the less beauty we take out of it. And I find myself coming back to this idea when I think about present time and how we treat it. When time doesn't require our attention, as in nothing good or bad is happening in our lives, we act as if it's paused. We take it for granted, assuming that it will always carry on the way it has. And it's within these moments that we develop regrets about the way that we lived our lives and used our time. We tend to view time as our favorite mug in the back of the cupboard. We cherish it without ever using it, and we keep it back there so long away from harm that we start to believe it will always be there, that we will always have it, that time is endless. But it's not. The truth is, time is just as fragile as your favorite mug at the back of the cupboard. And we learn this in an instant when it comes crashing at our feet and shatters in front of us. Suddenly, everything is different. And we stand there wishing that, instead of hiding it away, we would have used it better. The moments in my life where the mug has come crashing down have been really jarring for me. And I'm sure many of you can pinpoint similar moments, ones that may have even been traumatic. And as much as I'd love to sit here and say that we can take the pain out of a surprise, I cannot do that. But what I can do is try to teach us to use our mug a little bit more and how to handle it a little bit better when it does break. So with that, there is no time like the present, which was an intentional joke there to ease the tension a little bit, but we're just going to go right into it. I personally believe that our lack of patience to live in the present is a clear sign that we are running from something. And I say this based on the only merit that I relate to it, but it makes sense to me. If you struggle to find peace in the present moment, then you are most likely consumed with a concern about the future or a regret about the past. Gemma, the host of this incredible podcast called The Psychology of Your 20s, says something along the lines of this. I was listening to her podcast and I meant to quote it word for word, but it might be a little bit off, but the message is the point that matters. She says, "The reason we spend a lot of time in our memories is because there is no surprise. We know what's going to happen. And we do the same thing with the future. The more overthinking we do, the more we feel as though we have control over it." If you listen to the last episode I put up about the past, then I'm sure you've determined whether you're the kind of person who lives within it and consumes yourself with the memories and who you once were, or whether you're the person that does everything in your power to run away from it and focus on the future. But if you don't know, I want you to think about which side you veer to more often than not. Then acknowledge it and own it. And ask yourself what your priorities are right now. Where do you find yourself? Are you trying to work yourself out of whatever situation you're presently in? Because if we identify ourselves too much with our goals, we run the risk of losing ourselves within them. And if we identify too much with who we once were, we risk losing direction and purpose. In both circumstances, we are running from something. You're running from the pressure of the future by remaining in your past, or you're running from the past by only consuming yourself with task after task so you don't even have to think about it. If you find yourself in the position where the mug comes crashing down and it ends up destroying everything around you, then you've probably put your hopes in the wrong places. The best way I can explain this is if you picture yourself as an athlete that's part of a team. Say you've worked your entire life to play at the level that you do, and though you still value everything that's happened along the way, you will never be satisfied until you reach that one trophy. Now, obviously, this is a purely human response and completely understandable and honorable to an extent. But if it gets to the point where you lose track of every other aspect of your life because of one goal, you will find yourself unsatisfied in the pursuit of it. Because you'll come to know that you cannot control anyone on that team but yourself. You can run yourself dry trying to motivate your teammates or lose friendships by getting angry and frustrated. But winning takes an individual mindset with a full team contribution, which is something entirely out of one person's control. So if you've placed your goals, your dreams, everything in the pursuit of one thing that you do not have full control over, and it ends up crumbling in front of your eyes, you will crumble as well. We also have to be wary about how much we're identifying with our past, the story that we tell ourselves. Otherwise, we miss who we really are. Of course, your past experience lead to your beliefs and expectations of the world. But if we hyperfixate on what was once true, we lock ourselves into a narrative and inhibit our own growth. It's important to remind yourself that just because you were not capable then doesn't mean you're still not capable. Don't sell yourself short based on your past. It is what we focus on that will make up who we become. The host of Let's Talk About Mental Health illustrates this wonderfully. Again, my wording might be slightly off from exactly what he said, but the point is the overall message. He says, "The future is both unknown and unknowable. Since it's the choices you make here in the present that will determine what will or what won't happen in your future. Simply put, your habits will determine your future." Next episode, we will be talking solely about the future, so I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I do want to focus in on habits for a little bit because not only do they build us forward, but they also define our individual present lives. A habit is defined by Cambridge Dictionary as something that you do regularly, almost without thinking about it. I remember when I learned about habits for the first time, and not like the first time, obviously, but when I truly understood the importance of their impact in our lives. Someone explained it as lives broken up into days, days broken up into routine, and routine broken up into habits. And that illustration really made it click for me. If there was an aspect of my life that I wanted to change and I had the capability to change, it began with my habits. For example, after high school, I didn't attend any post-secondary, but I still wanted to learn. So in order to continue to expand my knowledge on things, I had to build the habit of prioritizing reading or finding a really good podcast and choosing to put that on instead of scroll on my phone. I feel like I sound crazy explaining habits because it's such a simple concept, but I really wanted to do it because their impact is so grand. So let's talk about our habits. Think about what is true in this present moment of your life for you? What are you prioritizing? For me, a lot of steady things in my life right now are working on this podcast, reading Olivia Rodrigo workout sessions, using the 80-20 mentality for my health and fitness, listening to an endless stream of podcasts from psychology to hockey analysis, a random classical music fixation, and finally watching almost every Italian batch video on YouTube. Making this list in a journal entry style is something I try to do every couple months. I just sit down and jot the simple things in life that I'm currently enjoying to a specific weird detail, things that you might not think are important, but things that you are doing on a daily or multiple times throughout the week. And when I go back, it's like a time capsule. I'm able to view my life in a way that my memories don't remember it, because the things I've written down maybe aren't core memories or really hard things I experienced. They're just daily habits. So I encourage you to pause this episode and go to your notes app or grab your notebook and do the same. Just jot down all the little things that define your life in this moment. Which show are you watching right now? What type of workout have you been enjoying right now? What hoodie do you grab from the closet first when you need to walk out the door? Which friend have you been seeing the most? What lessons have you been learning? And in doing this, you'll create a log of what your typical daily life looks like. And this is important because once you've done this, you can then look at it and you can ask yourself if you're happy with it. Whether you need to dedicate more time to work or less time to work. Whether you need to get a new hobby or get rid of one hobby. It is the first step to becoming more in control of your day-to-day habits. However, of course, what we will find is that present time will teach us that we cannot always be in control. And it is in learning this truth about life that we will be less hurt when that mug comes crashing at our feet. Being present brings us so many things. It leads to curiosity, and curiosity is at the beginning of every good new idea. It can also bring us peace. For those of us that deal with anxiety, any form of it, whether it be about the past or the future or what we're currently living through, the present can be seen as a gift that we need to learn how to open more often. Another word for being present is mindfulness, and I feel like we've used it so much that we forget its true impact and what it really means, but it is very important. And the reason it's important is because it is actively giving your brain a break from worrying. It allows you a span of time where you're not ruminating on your past mistakes, nor are you panicking about the direction of your life. And this goes back to that cliche about stopping to smell the roses. You can choose to write off this 5-minute mindfulness practice as unimportant and a waste of time. But if you continue to do that day after day, you'll be losing out on more than just 5 minutes. You will actually be losing out on 35 minutes a week and 2 hours a month of time for your brain to rest. And that is why it's helpful. Again, like any habit, it is the small repetitions of the simple change that create the big difference. I had a moment a little bit ago where I was forced to be more present. I had the privilege of seeing Inhaler on their last tour, and this made it the third time that I got to go see them, which I do not take for granted at all. And really quickly, my one tip to everyone out there, wherever you are, find a band on the opposite side of the world and then ride or die for them, because most likely when they come to play a city near you, you have better odds of getting a smaller venue and therefore better ticket prices. So that's my small hack. Smaller artists are where it's at, guys, but this is not the point. The point is, about an hour before the show, I looked at my phone and I noticed I had 40% battery, and immediately I thought, oh, I have to stop using my phone, otherwise it'll be dead and I can't film videos at the show. But then it dawned on me that the videos I would be recording would be the same songs that I had video recordings of, and did I really need those? No. So this allowed me to leave my phone in my pocket for the majority of the show, and that led me to just being able to dance and sing with my best friend beside me. In life, we end up ruining a lot of moments for ourselves by being consumed within our thoughts. Whether you're at the concert you've anticipated for months, yet all you can do is worry about tomorrow, or whether you're on a walk and all you can think about is the mistake you made 5 years ago. If instead you chose to look at your surroundings and be where your feet are, you would enjoy that concert more, and maybe you'd even look up into the sky and see the double rainbow. Really quickly, before we end, I want to share just a fantastic song with you. It's called Teal by Wonder Horse. Wonder Horse is an English band that I've brought up on this podcast before, but not really in depth. They're fantastic. Their whole discography is really great, but I just want to talk about Teal specifically for this episode. I could sit here and recite every word to it, but I would just not do it justice. So please, if you do anything from this episode, go listen to this song and read the lyrics as you go through it. But for the point I have to make, I do have to read a part of it. So again, I won't do it justice, but bear with me. Lead singer Jacob Slater sings, "And when I was using, she still said she loved me. Be more of a human, less of a junkie. You got a gift, man. Go and be something. If I was in your shoes, I would be jumping." And that's when I felt it. It conquered my heart. It was the light of a candle in the depths of the dark. And there was a fire, it danced in your eyes. A beautiful world and a beautiful mind. The song is a reflection of a lesson that Jacob Slater learned after getting the news that someone close to him had fallen ill. And whenever I'm reminded of this song, it brings me chills like no other. It reminds me of all the privileges that I have in my life, and that there's no sense in spending my time worrying about trivial things like the past that I cannot change and the future that I cannot predict or control, when I'm actually fully capable of changing anything I want in the present moment. So the lesson that I hope you take away from today's episode, if you take anything at all, is that if you can, you must savor the moment. Run instead of walk. Jump instead of sway. Laugh instead of smile. Sing instead of hum. Life may be hard right now. You may have just walked through 2024 and had it be one of the worst years of your life. Or life may be boring right now. Maybe you found yourself stuck in a cycle that you hate, one that doesn't bring you purpose or fulfillment or joy. Or life may be bittersweet. Maybe you're nearing the end of a phase that you loved dearly, but at the same time, you're so excited about the next one, the future. Wherever you are, there is one truth. It won't always be like this. When I am in the midst of a hard time, these words bring me immense peace. Yet, I neglect them when I am happy or bored. It's as if I only acknowledge that time moves when there is big change going on in my life, which is just not the case. Like I said earlier about that mug, it won't always be there. So in these moments, I tell myself, one day you will miss this. Not to make myself sad, but just to bring myself into the present moment. To make myself aware that I am not in control of time, and that all I really have is the opportunity to choose whether I cherish it or disregard it. As always, all social media and sources are in the show notes below. Let's let music bring us together, and don't forget to grow up slowly.